In any professional sport, you always have those who separate themselves from their competition, being one of the best at their craft, excelling above and beyond their peers, and being seen as the elite of the elite in their profession. And in every sport, there are always those who are considered to be some of the greatest players of all time. And while most are in agreement which players are considered to be all-time greats, it's still a topic that is often heavily debated. Hell, ask anyone who they have as their top 10 greatest basketball players of all time, and I'm sure it's going to differ from your own. But we're not here to talk about who are considered to be some of the greatest players of all time. We're here to talk about the greatest player of all time in the game of basketball. The GOAT debate has become such a heated topic amongst analysts, media personalities, NBA players themselves, and even your own friends and family, to the point where relationships have been broken because of it. But there is a problem with the GOAT debate itself that no one wants to admit, and it's why the debate will always prove to be trivial. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribed and hit that notification bell, as about 87% of you are not subscribed to the channel, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this all season long. Now, when most people think of the GOAT in basketball, they instantly think of the legend that is Michael Jordan, a man who won 6 championships, having never lost in the NBA Finals, arguably the best scorer the game has ever seen even to this day, a 10-time scoring champion, 14-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA player, 9-time Defensive Team Player, 5-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year winner, 6-time Finals MVP winner. Look, you get it. The man was in a class of his own and continues to still be to this day. Michael Jordan is still the leader in NBA history in career player efficiency rating, despite the fact that players across the board in the NBA today are far more efficient in the league than they ever have been. Michael Jordan still has the highest game score ever achieved by a player at 46.6 in NBA history, despite the fact that with today's insane individual scoring numbers and statistics at large from players that you see today, that mark has still never been broken. In fact, Michael Jordan by far and away has the highest number of game scores among the best 100 individual game performances in NBA history. Now, for me personally, Michael Jordan is my GOAT, and was a player that got me into watching basketball when I was a kid and following the Chicago Bulls. And while yes, I'll always have my biases towards MJ when it comes to the GOAT debate, you also cannot ignore how much Michael Jordan struggled for the years that he did to get out of the Eastern Conference until he was able to get the right supporting cast around him, as well as a mastermind coach to get him over the hump and start winning championships. People don't like to talk about the fact that for a while, MJ was just considered a high volume scorer who couldn't contribute to winning at the highest level. Circumstance and even a bit of luck is everything when it comes to defining a player's career and legacy in the NBA. LeBron James, who some have now considered to be the greatest of all time, with his insane longevity and playing at an elite level for damn near 2 decades, setting records that will likely never be broken, and of course winning multiple championships. LeBron James went to the NBA Finals for 8 straight seasons, playing on 2 separate teams in those 8 straight seasons. In fact, he went to 9 out of 10 NBA Finals as the team's best player, something that will likely never happen again for a single player to appear in that many finals as the number 1 option on a team. There's something to be said about leaving a team like the Cavs as one of the best teams in the NBA at that time in 2010. The Cavs quickly become a bottom feeder in the league after he leaves, goes to Miami for 4 years, comes back to Cleveland, and instantly makes them a title contender from lottery team to a finals appearance, while the Heat go to being a first-round exit team. And after he leaves the Cavs again to go to LA, they go right back down to the top of the lottery. What LeBron James has been able to do over the course of his career is nothing short of phenomenal and unprecedented, considering even some of the all-time greats that came before him were never able to sustain the level of success and elite play for so many seasons. 19 All-Star appearances, 18 All-NBA selections, 6-time All-Defense, 4 titles with 4 Finals MVPs, and of course, the NBA's all-time scoring record. And then what about some of those quote-unquote fringe players that are discussed in the GOAT debate? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he has just as many titles as Michael Jordan, more MVPs than Jordan, more All-NBA selections and All-Star appearances. Going further back, guys like Wilt Chamberlain, who was so dominant in his era that the man averaged over 50 points per game and 25 rebounds in a single season. Or if we're talking about championships as the main factor in the debate for the greatest of all time, Kareem and MJ don't even stand close to someone like Bill Russell, who has 11 titles to his name. Or how about Kobe Bryant, a man who, like Michael Jordan, was the ultimate competitor, a player who could take over any game with the flip of a switch and will his team to win. And like those other greats, also multiple titles won by Kobe Bryant, also other individual accolades and record statistics. So how do you define the greatest player of all time? Is it championships? Is it other stats and accolades a player has amassed over the course of their career? Is it the sheer impact and value they brought to the court in making their team better? Or is it just the narrative and discourse around these players for where they should be ranked on the all-time list? Or perhaps it's a combination of all of it. Do you consider a player's circumstance, the era they played in? Would Michael Jordan have been considered the GOAT if he never had Scottie Pippen? Would he have won that many championships without Phil Jackson as his head coach? Would Michael Jordan have been as dominant without the perfect roster around him? Would Kobe Bryant be the legend that he is today had he not been traded to the Lakers on draft night and instead played for the Charlotte Hornets without Shaquille O'Neal, without Pau Gasol? Would Wilt Chamberlain have been as dominant and successful in an era where he was literally one of the handful of 7-footers in the entire NBA and going up against small, unathletic dudes who wouldn't even be able to sniff making it in the NBA today? Does the same also go for Bill Russell? And what if Russell and Wilt's roles were reversed? What if Wilt Chamberlain was the starting center on a perfect Celtics team that completely ran the 60s and Bill Russell had to play in Philly and LA? And then for LeBron James, what does his resume and legacy look like without the pieces falling in place to put him alongside Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, or even Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love? So many things can change due to a player's circumstance, and also just the sheer luck of being drafted in the right setting, the right team, and roster around him, and also avoiding injuries. While maybe even from time to time getting lucky with one of your main rival teams suffering a big injury that would otherwise have been a big challenger. And therein lies the issue with the GOAT debate. There is no proper formula or algorithm that can measure and objectively say this is the greatest player of all time. Fan biases, media narratives, as well as opinions on which accolades and accomplishments should hold more weight than others are only going to shift and skew one's determination on who should be the GOAT. Assessing the greatest player of all time also makes it so hard to determine when the game of basketball has simply evolved over time. As much as we like to do it, you simply cannot compare players side by side who played in different eras. To say Michael Jordan wouldn't have been as dominant in today's NBA because he wasn't known for his three-point shooting and finished his career shooting 32.7% from three on a measly 1.7 threes per game is just absurd to say. Who's to say that MJ wouldn't have been able to adapt his game and perfect his shooting from outside, while still possessing the insane ability to get to the basket and effortlessly score at the rim as we saw him do throughout his career? Or that the talent pool of the 80s and 90s was much lower, which allowed Jordan to shine in the way that he did going up against guys who would be in the G League had they played today. And that Jordan just would have been another star amongst stars in today's NBA when you compare some of his numbers versus what some other superstars are able to put up today. Nonsense. Jordan was the ultimate competitor and would have done nothing but to do everything in his power to be the best and far exceed the competition if placed in the current era of the NBA today. Or to say that LeBron James wouldn't have fared well in an era that was much more physical, with more focus on defense like the 80s and 90s. Pretty sure a freak athlete like LeBron, who was a freight train running downhill in transition, would have fared just fine in the less talented, less athletic, albeit more physical era of basketball. And look, at the end of the day, we simply don't know, nor will we ever know, how these various all-time greats would have fared in a different era. You can't fault a player like Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain playing in an era of the game that is nothing like the basketball we see today and simply write them off in the history books. The fact of the matter is, they dominated during their tenure in the NBA, were the greatest players in the league at that time, and will always be remembered as all-time greats for separating themselves from the competition. Same goes for Kareem, Michael, and even Kobe. They played in eras where they were the best players during their time and solidified themselves as legends for what they achieved and brought to the game. That's the problem with the GOAT debate. It's never going to be 100% objective, and it's never going to be viewed with 100% accuracy when players over the course of time have played different types and styles of basketball as the game has evolved in its history. It's a debate that will always be ongoing, always changing, and yet never be solved for. Even though I will say, as close to being as objective as humanly possible, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time, but I'm also, like you, have my biases and opinions on what is considered to be more valuable in determining this title of being the GOAT. Thus, I invite you in the comments to have at it and list out your greatest player of all time and the reasons why. And as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.